welcome back to another New World Update video, pre-beta. They have just released tonight the June update part 2. If I look a bit of a mess, yes, I haven't showered in like 5 days standard, and we just got finished playing Battlefield 4 with our entire community, and it has been absolute carnage. So I'm feeling sweaty, ready for shower, and ready for bed, to be honest. But this update is awesome, and I really wanted to get something out sooner rather than later. Okay, so a couple of key points in this update that I really wanted to touch on was PvP update. A few changes have been made to the way PvP is going to incentivize people, and secondly, the war declaration update. And if you guys don't know how this works, obviously we'll run through it, but very quickly now, it's how you will be declaring war to claim your settlements in New World. So without further ado, let's get into this update. Straight away, let's take a look at these new weapons and armor skins that they have teased through these screenshots. Helmet on the left, not too sure about this one. Looks a little bit strange, but the rest of his armor is looking very cool, especially that skull on his belt. Love it. The war axe looks slightly smaller and like a little bit out of proportion here. I don't know if that's just me, but obviously the way he's holding it looks a bit small. Again, the skin is fantastic. The guy in the middle leaping in with this warhammer is awesome. The warhammer looks fantastic. The cloth sort of type armor that he's wearing also looks very cool and would suggest that he's not running a full heavy build. Then, you know, you're looking at his helmet. Again, probably not something that I would choose. However, again, more diversity in the game is better for everyone. So these are starting off fantastic. Okay, the second screenshot that they've teased is pretty awesome, to be honest. Right hand side guy looks insane. Love everything about it. Helmet, chest plate, gloves, awesome. Very, very cool. Probably something that I would look to wear as a heavy user. Guy to the left looks like an archer again. Maybe medium armor, maybe light, probably medium. Helmet is awesome. A little bit out there, but looking wicked. And you can see the bow on his back. A new skin that we haven't seen before. Wicked. A Garden of Genesis type expedition type armor, maybe. Very much looking like this has originated again from Eden Grove. Just brilliant. Like the diversity again that's coming out just of these three guys here is wicked. And lastly, a more toned down piece of armor, or cosmetics, should I say. Maybe for someone who doesn't want to look like a superhero. So let's take a look at some of the more finer details around the cosmetics and the skins that are coming in. So faction heavy tier 5 armor sets now have unique visuals with a different look for each faction. This is really cool to differentiate, you know, Marauders, Syndicate, and Covenant. I really like this. The Lost heavy and medium armor drops now have a new look at tier 3 and tier 4. Updated visuals on Outpost Rush weapons. One question I do want to ask is, do we know if we will take our character from the open world into Outpost Rush, or is it instanced with particular sets of gear? For example, here we can see that, you know, they've updated the visuals on Outpost Rush weapons. Maybe these are drops. Maybe these are just weapons that you get given as you enter the instanced PvP. If anyone has any information on this would be great to understand and know. Obviously outside of NDA information, please. Updated visuals on the Dynasty Shipyard Expedition weapons. Added new armor sets with interesting values to the global open world drops. This is cool. This is actually very cool. Including a 17th century beekeeper's outfit. Like, what? Is this going to affect maybe... you know, I know that there are beehives around the town. Maybe this will affect how much honey you can pick up and things like that. This is very cool. And lastly, updated the visuals for tier 5 weapon drops by Elite, Angry Earth, and Ancient enemies. So this is quite an important update, because if we look back 2 months ago, we were all really worried that there wasn't going to be enough diversity through the armor, the skins, the weapons. And it looks like they've listened to us. You know, There's a lot of new weapons here. There's a lot of new skins here, and I'm really excited to see them all. Some, what I would call big changes to the XP system again. It seems like they're listening to the alpha players, and they are now rebalancing the XP to make it work. So starting off, we are reducing the XP required to level by 20% for all levels after level 7. I think level 7 was mentioned in the previous update too, so we can assume that level 7 is a key moment in the game, and potentially I'm leading to that this is where you would select your faction. They have doubled the amount of XP from repeatable expedition quests, making them even more enticing. So as we now know, you need a tuning orb to enter expeditions. Expeditions need to be rewarding for us to continue to do them. Early game expeditions, if we're getting double XP from quests inside these, this is a great start. A few more key updates to the expeditions. So improved expedition drops by increasing the chances that expedition armor and weapons will drop with one more perk than they did previously. Increased special drops from expeditions and elite POIs. We want to ensure that players feel rewarded for defeating some of the most dangerous enemies in Eternum. This again is really cool. One of the key points that I really like on this sort of balance update part here is at least one gear drop from an expedition boss will guarantee a gear score increase, provided the boss is powerful enough to grant one in the first place. I'm assuming that's grant one, not grant on. Pretty cool. You know, it's really important that we can go to these places and get good gear, assuming the bosses are really hard. So this is good. And they sneaked in here something for end game, or a bit more end game. They've mentioned here that clothing with trade skill related perks will now be found at elite POIs at end game areas. So that's things like your crafting, your gathering, and your refining. You'll now be able to find clothing with perks to enhance your trade skills. A huge change here. Players can now salvage gear they receive as drops into gold and repair parts. This will provide a great new source of income for players and ensure all drops have a base value. And that means the resources you used to get from salvaging your drops are now removed, which means gathering is far more important than it was before. And this I really love. This is a good change. So moving on, we have some changes here that probably won't mean much to most of us, but let's run through them quickly anyway. Reduce the XP bonus granted from leveling up in territory standing. Adjusted the amount of territory standing gained from crafting, as some of the crafted items could generate a disproportionately large amount of standing. Quests that award specific items should now award items aligned with the intended level of quest. Increased trade skill XP for crafting jewelry items. Decreased trade skill XP for crafting jewelry components. I would assume the components are cheaper to craft than the items. So again, just sort of some balancing coming in here. Trade skill XP for cutting gems has been increased. Adjusted harvested XP to fall more in line with the weaving progression. And finally, adjusted weaving and leatherworking trade skill XP curves to better align with the amount of gathering necessary to achieve the similar level in the respective gathering skills. Again, some nice balance changes. Don't mean much to me, to be honest, but it's really nice to see them bringing in these changes and making sure that the game is balanced and ready for us on beta. Moving on to the crafting and the gathering side of this update. Starting off with a big one, fishing. We all love the fishing. Updated piranhas, dragonfish, spear-tooth sharks, and stingrays to salvage into fish guts with a chance to earn an extra unique item for each fish, which can be used in alchemy. I mean, I had no idea that you could catch sharks or stingrays or whatever dragonfish are. So this is really cool, and I'm very excited to see these. Another big update here. Added the ability to combine lower tier gems into higher tier gems at the stone cutting station. Players can now use any tier of solvent when refining gems, and they have tuned the repair crafting costs. The rest of the crafting and gathering looks to be more sort of balanced changes again. which is awesome. Let's just run through a few of them. Increased the resource cost of crafting epic crafting materials by 1. And they have slightly increased the drop rates and quantities of gemstones found in the standard ore veins. Removed the need for craft mods on the first tier of crafting trophies. These have been replaced with elemental essences. We can assume that the essences are easier to get than the crafting mods to allow people to get at least their tier 1 crafting trophies up and running relatively quickly. Foods granting trade skill bonuses from large provisioning containers have been removed, but these containers will still continue to drop finished meals of the health and mana recovery variety. Straight away, yeah, this is going to put a greater emphasis on either crafting these meals yourself or purchasing them from other players, sort of bulking the player economy there. They believe this change will have a greater emphasis on people crafting these meals or purchasing them from other players who have crafted them. I love this. This is great. Something I think we're all quite excited for, something that's not a massive, but something that we're quite excited for, is titles and achievements. So they mentioned here that they've been working with the alpha community to refine the update and title system ahead of the launch. People have provided feedback that there were too many titles, and because of that, displaying a hard-earned title didn't feel special. Some titles have been removed, and most will be earned only by completing higher level achievements. If you see someone with a title, you know that they've worked hard to unlock it. For those who may require it, the title change UI now has a pronoun selector. You can decide if your character's title should be a he, a him, a she, a her, a they, or a them pronoun when the text of the title allows it. And they have introduced Steam achievements. Completing some in-game achievements will also grant Steam achievements for you Steam achievement hunters out there. Brilliant. Take a look at the UX and the UI updates. So the intro cinematic just before the character creation screen has been updated with new dialogue that better sets up Captain Thorpe's story. The main menu now includes a more streamlined flow when a player enters without existing character, leading them right to World Select. UI team have focused on polish this release, fixing 259 bugs. Typing a direct message no longer makes a ... bubble. Great. And chat now has a setting to display a dark background behind each message, making them easier to read. It's nice that they're sort of improving the chat dialogue. I think chat is going to be a huge part of this game, especially your faction chat, making sure that your faction are working together. So if there's a setting to make it easier to read, brilliant. So we have a couple of combat and enemy AI changes here. One of the most noticeable changes is that expedition creatures have had an increase of damage by 10 to 20% to provide a greater challenge to all players. Constitution has had some changes too, and finally they have updated the targeted healing. So pressing control while a heal is active will now automatically perform a self heal. Players no longer have to hold control before casting that spell. Okay, so my favorite part of this update, the war declaration update. All right, so in the past, it's very much been basically a lottery system to who gets to declare war on what territory. And I haven't hated it so much because I felt like over a period of 6 months, smaller companies won't have as much money to constantly declare war. Larger companies will, and it would kind of even itself out. However, look at these patch notes. Fantastic what they've introduced. Let's just run through this quickly. The war declaration has been updated to reward the most active companies in the influence race with a higher chance of being selected as the vanguard. What that basically means is the more you are involved in putting that particular territory settlement in conflict, you as a company will have a higher chance to become the vanguard to attack that settlement. So following on from that, previously all companies were able to declare war as long as that territory was in conflict. So assuming my company did all the work, your company could also declare war. Didn't really make sense. So what they've done is basically, to be eligible, a company must have contributed at least 10% of the total influence required to throw the territory into conflict. In the unlikely event that no company contributes to over 10%, any company will then be eligible to declare war. The war declaration button now indicates a company's eligibility to declare war. These quite big changes will absolutely have a dramatic effect. Sorry, my tripod was falling down. These changes will have a dramatic effect on what companies get a chance to declare war. So the more active you are, and ultimately, if you have 100 active active member company, you are going to have a chance to declare war more than a 10-person company, and that's good for the larger companies. Potentially not so good for the smaller companies that want to get involved. However, it seems to be a fairer system all around, so that's great. And finally, this last point seems to just confirm that, yeah, the company that does the most influence has a higher chance of becoming the vanguard. So we now move on to some pretty cool PvP updates. Okay, so they have reduced the loss on your gear's durability when you die in PvP. They have increased XP for PvP kills, and they have, what is really exciting actually, they have adjusted the camp respawning mechanics to make faction control point battles more interesting. Wicked. Players flagged for PvP receive 50% less durability damage to equipment, both equipped and in their backpack, when killed by another player. So they have increased the XP players receive for PvP kills and added rewards for players that have been alive longer. So killing a player that has been alive for longer than an hour will now reward 4 times what the max used to be. Pretty awesome. And finally, when flagged for PvP, choosing to respawn at a camp activates an incrementally increasing respawn cooldown. Basically, your cooldowns are going to get bigger the more you die and the more you respawn at your camp. For each subsequent camp respawn, the cooldown increases, yes. If the player chooses to respawn elsewhere, for instance at a settlement, the cooldown will continue counting down in the background. If the player dies while flagged for PvP, while the cooldown is counting down, the time increment will be added to the current value. This makes respawning at a settlement and running back to the fray a great way for players to lower their camp cooldown. So these changes, especially for faction control points that they mentioned, are really going to change the way PvP is going to be working. It's actually fantastic to see that they are really trying to incentivize more PvP without sort of breaking the balance, I guess, between PvE and PvP. I'm sure some of us out there would still like to see more PvP incentives, but it's definitely going in the right direction. So between these PvP updates and the Vanguard updates, pretty happy with this update. That was my key points and my favorite parts from the June Part 2 update. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sticking with me while I ran through these Part 2 updates. As you can see, I just realized I haven't used my pop filter. I am a very amateur creator and I'm still learning. So if you're enjoying the content, I really appreciate the nice messages you guys have been sending in. So leave a comment, leave a like, leave a subscribe. I try to read every single comment that gets left. It'll be really awesome to hear your thoughts on the weapons, the armor skins that they're bringing out here, and especially tell me what you think about the Vanguard system. One last thing, every Wednesday night we do something called Newer Wednesdays. I basically host people from our company, and coming up soon, people from outside the company, just to talk New World, discuss what we love, discuss what we don't like. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.